Is it perfect timing, cool vibes, or can Spider-Man just not miss at the box office? For all these reasons and more, Across the Spider-Verse blew the competition away. Some superheroes are pretty obscure, and some are Spider-Man. Regardless, the first Spider-Verse asked a lot from viewers, centering on a Spidey who had never been tested on the big screen. In addition to focusing on Miles Morales, it was also one of the first modern superhero movies to embrace the concept of the multiverse, bringing a whole crew of obscure takes on Spider-Man and making them front and center. Compared to live-action tentpoles starring the likes of Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield as the familiar Peter Parker, this Spider-Man adventure arrived somewhat under the radar. That's not the case this time around. Thanks to great reviews that called it maybe the best Spider-Man film ever made, the original movie won over legions of new fans in their living rooms, building a groundswell of excitement that had the sequel opening to a far larger potential audience. As a result, Across the Spider-Verse will likely surpass the box office total of its predecessor in a fraction of the time.
I leveled up my whole thing. See?
With the 2019 Oscar win for Best Animated Feature and a plethora of other accolades, Into the Spider-Verse was too successful to be called a cult movie. But it nonetheless collected a substantial cult of diehards. As Slash Film puts it, the sequel's success speaks volumes about how the audience for the first film exploded over the last 4 years. Keep in mind, this trend is likely to continue. Across the Spider-Verse will undoubtedly play well in fans' homes for months to come, winning over yet more new converts who will be pounding at the theater doors in March 2024. Thanks to this movie's many cliffhangers, no one who sees it will want to miss the grand conclusion promised by its own upcoming sequel, Beyond the Spider-Verse. Out of all the recent Spider-Man movies, Into the Spider-Verse was the only one to have made less than $700 million worldwide. Nonetheless, its reported final haul of over $375 million represented a healthy profit when compared to the movie's $90 million budget. For over 2 decades now, Spider-Man movies have been as close to a sure bet as you can get in Hollywood, regardless of who stars in them or how well they're received by critics and audiences. Peter Parker's appearances in the Marvel Cinematic Universe have also come in some of its most lucrative installments: Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, and Avengers: Endgame, which combined made about $6 billion. The original Spider-Verse opened relatively modestly for Sony, netting over $35 million at the global box office and winning the weekend on the back of its familiar branding. After that movie won so many fans over, the sequel's opening weekend blew it out of the water, raking in well over 3 times as much money with $120.5 million. When Into the Spider-Verse premiered, moviegoers who weren't steeped in the source material may not have been exposed to the concept of a multiverse. While there were stray sci-fi movies and TV shows that dealt with alternate realities, the word multiverse was rarely if ever used, and the concept was far from the center of the zeitgeist.
You from another dimension? Like a parallel universe where things are like this universe but different? And you're Spider-Man in that universe, but somehow travel to this universe.
Although the notion was vaguely referenced in 2016's Doctor Strange, the MCU's multiverse didn't really get kicking until after 2019's Avengers: Endgame. Phases 4 and 5's interdimensional stories like Loki and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness brought the concept heavily into the overarching plot. That means Into the Spider-Verse should get substantial credit for making multiverses mainstream. Consider this, only 4 years after that film served as a multiverse primer, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, a live-action film about the concept, won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. In the years between the first and second Spider-Verse films, the notion of infinite planes of existence has become commonplace enough that it almost feels like a cliché. Audiences probably didn't buy a ticket to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse specifically because they love multiverses so much. It's the fan-favorite character and the phenomenal animation that are the stars of this series. But because multiversal storytelling has more of a place in popular culture than ever before, selling audiences on the fundamental concept was easier than ever. While history shows that people will go see a Spider-Man movie regardless of the reviews, it certainly helps if the buzz prior to release is as strong as it was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. On the heels of opening weekend, its Rotten Tomatoes score jumped straight to 95%, making it one of the most acclaimed major studio films of the year. Its audience score went even higher at 96%. Though Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse settled into a slightly higher 97% Rotten Tomatoes rating, many critics called the sequel even better than the original in their write-ups. Fan sentiment has been equally effusive, and the only thing bringing down these rave reviews is the film's abrupt ending. It's 2 hours and 30 minutes, yet it's effectively the first half of a story that will resolve itself in next year's Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. The release of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was delayed twice. Initially, a teaser advertised a premiere date of April 2022. That got bumped back to October, then Sony execs finally settled on June 2nd, 2023. Though the postponements were frustrating to fans eager to see Miles Morales in action again, it might be a case of good things coming to those who wait. The move gave the creative team more time to get Across the Spider-Verse just right, and it provided the movie with a choice spot on the calendar. With school letting out and families looking for something to do, Across the Spider-Verse only had The Little Mermaid in its second week to grapple with. The Super Mario Bros. Movie and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 were still in theaters at the time of its release, but they weren't the juggernauts they were weeks prior. Coming later in June are DC's The Flash and Pixar's Elemental, both of which drop into cinemas on the 16th. The former has strong buzz, but a potential problem to overcome on its embattled star, Ezra Miller. Bad reviews out of Cannes poured cold water on the prospects of Elemental. Neither is tracking anywhere near the Spider-Verse sequel's opening weekend totals, all of which should allow the Spidey sequel additional weeks to dominate the box office and pad out its total earnings. While most theatrical animated movies these days are rated PG, the vast majority of superhero and comic book movies are rated PG-13. That PG-13 rating, however, doesn't necessarily stop parents from bringing younger children to see, say, the latest installment of the MCU. Sometimes word gets out that a PG-13 film is too much for some kids to handle. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 both pushed the envelope when it came to horror, adult situations, and humor.
Okay, now what?
Open the door!
Like the original, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is rated PG, but brilliantly positions itself in the grey area between an eye-dazzling kids' cartoon and more adult-oriented, dark superhero territory. This gives parents of children who might still be too young for some of Marvel's racier titles peace of mind. Sure, the artistry and the emotionality are far more mature than the average animated movie, but there's minimal objectionable language, no gross-out moments, and no blood. Across the Spider-Verse is packed full of good role models and positive messages about what it means to be a kid and a parent. Its well-deserved PG rating, plus its overall quality and relevant themes, make it perfect for a family outing. Just because Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is appropriate for single-digit aged audience members doesn't mean older teens and adults won't be entertained. Yes, it's a cartoon. Yes, it has messages about family and identity. But absolutely nothing about Across the Spider-Verse is simple or sugar-coated. Visually and narratively, the film is equal parts authentic and edgy. Miles and Gwen face complex and sometimes gut-wrenching problems that don't have obvious solutions. Whole stretches of the movie are downright sad, which is skillfully reflected in the animation style and color palette. The humor is also sharper than one would expect from a PG movie. Writers Phil Lord and Christopher Miller are known for being able to deliver rapid-fire gags, as they did in the Lego Movie, another PG-rated film that manages to be PG-13 style funny. The jokes are smart, subversive, and fun, and the plot, which is remarkably unpredictable for a kid's movie, keeps fans on their toes and trying to guess what's going to happen next. The film's PG rating welcomes a younger subset of viewers, while doing nothing to deter the demographic that usually prefers more complex PG-13 and R-rated movies. Kid movies and superhero movies are perfect opportunities for merchandising and product placement. Every time one comes out, brand new affiliated items can be found on store shelves and at fast food restaurants. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is no different. Tied to its release, Burger King offered a limited-time BK-verse menu that featured a red-bunned Whopper and a Spider-Verse ice cream sundae. The Whopper sold out within days. Selling out even faster were new Across the Spider-Verse branded Air Jordan 1 Next Chapter high tops, gone in less than an hour.
Are those my Jordans?
I can't help it if we're the same size.
Merch builds hype among the most devoted fans and collectors, but not everyone cares about these kinds of promotions. Just because Burger King, Lego, and Nike are household name brands doesn't mean everyone is desperate for a red hamburger bun or a pair of $200 sneakers. These types of promotions do, however, get a film's name out there. Logos and images are plastered on store windows and internet browsers, and people subconsciously become aware that a movie like Across the Spider-Verse is coming soon. For all the planning that goes into making a movie, there's one thing that matters that's almost beyond the creator's control. Is it cool? The cool factor is kind of intangible, and it's not the kind of thing that you can force. If a piece of pop culture becomes cool to engage with, talk about, make memes about, its impact on pop culture gets much larger. As it builds an audience, no one wants to be left out. Across the Spider-Verse is undeniably cool. But this impossibly high cool factor didn't come out of nowhere. Miles Jordan's and Gwen's Converse are well-established, eternally cool brands. The creative flourishes and in-jokes are cool. Lord and Miller are cool. The voice actors all range from well-known to beloved. The original soundtrack by Metro Boomin and the Spider-Verse for the famous collaborators is pretty cool as well. But perhaps the coolest thing about Across the Spider-Verse is a new surefire breakout fan-favorite character, Spider-Punk. Otherwise known as Hobie Brown, Spider-Punk is depicted in a faded-out two-dimensional collage of poster scraps, reminiscent of the Sex Pistols' aesthetic, among others. Played by Oscar winner Daniel Kaluuya, he has a thick Cockney accent, and when he takes his mask off, Miles can't believe he's even cooler underneath. It's no surprise that the terms Hobie and Spider-Punk were trending on Twitter upon the film's release, or that fan art is already proliferating across the internet. Most people who saw Across the Spider-Verse on opening weekend only saw it once, but you can bet many will be seeing it again. This is one sequel that begs to be rewatched for multiple reasons. First, the art, the music, the script, and the voice acting are so layered and complex, fans want to pull further on some of the many threads that appear only briefly. Second, though there are moments where the movie slows down to have a moment of human connection, most of it moves so fast, audiences leave a first viewing feeling as though they must have missed something. The sequel is overflowing with Easter eggs, callbacks, and cameos. Sometimes multiple references share the same frame. There are allusions to the first movie, allusions to the live-action Spider-Man movies, allusions to Lord & Miller's other movies, nods to comic books, nods to video games, as of yet unseen variants of Spider-Man, and the number 42 appears more times than anyone could reasonably catch the first time around. There are even editor notes like in the comics, which sometimes appear and vanish too quickly for viewers who don't yet have the benefit of a pause button. Taken as a whole, this ridiculous level of rewatchability should help Across the Spider-Verse stay at or near the top of the box office throughout the first half of the summer.